Hi, and welcome to part 3 of this PowerShell Excel tutorial series. So in the last few videos, we've seen how to import and export very basic files through the Excel module, and then we've also seen how to add pivot tables and pivot charts using the export Excel function. So what we're going to be looking at today is actually a specific commandlet called Open-ExcelPackage. And what we can do once we open an Excel package, it basically lets us be able to modify the data at the cell level. So if you ever had a task to do where you had to read a specific cell, like you already know exactly what cell you need to read or exactly what cell you need to modify, you are able to do that through this commandlet. And you can also add pivot tables and pivot charts with data that is already existing in an Excel file. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. So what we're going to first take a look at is just how to edit cell values. So as we've seen in the first video, I have this really simple Excel file here that I have, which let me just remove this sheet here that we created the last time. So all we have right now is users, which has the name of our users, an age, and a country here. And then we also have a country code and then the name of that country. So it kind of links up. So we kind of create a little table there. So we have this data in this Excel spreadsheet, but what we would really like to do is we know that we actually want to always change C1 to, instead of showing country, we want it to say country code. So let's go ahead and let's do that here. So the first thing we're going to want to do, like always, I'm just going to create, instead of calling it export folder in this case, I'm going to call it working folder, just because I think it makes a bit more sense, because we're not just exporting, we're kind of working in the folder. So that's kind of where I'm getting the name for that. So we're just going to set it to the folder that I have all my files in. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called Excel file, and I'm going to set that to Open-ExcelPackage, and we're going to set that to a path, and we're going to set that path to the working folder / and our file is called test import.xlsx. All right, so let's just run these commands here, make sure that I'm running my import just to make sure that I actually have the module imported. So we can actually take a look to see what is in that Excel file variable. So we can see that it is so we can see when we look at our Excel, we get users, countries, which are the two sheets that we have in there, as we know. Then we have a package, we have workbooks, we have the compression, and we have the compatibility. So what I would want to do is I want to go into a specific worksheet. Now, what you might be tempted to kind of do is going to be Excel file dot users dot cells, which I believe this actually does work. So if we just do this here, we will actually see that we can go in here and we see that the value and the text is country. So that is really how simply it is to access the cell values in the sheets. Now there is another way that you can do, and that's going to be Excel file. Actually, let's just show you the exact, I'm going to show you the two ways side by side on how to access that C1. So that's going to be the first way that we just seen. And now the other way would be Excel file dot workbook dot worksheets. And then in here, we have to specify the worksheet of users. And then we're going to do cells. And then C1. And then if we look at this, as you can see, we get the exact same thing. So both of these are completely valid. I would probably use the first one. Now, the first one might cause you some issues if your worksheets have spaces or any odd characters. that make the dot notation a little bit harder. So you might need to use this one in certain situations. I haven't hit a situation where I need to, but I could imagine if you have like accented characters, you might have to, or if you have a dot in the sheet name, which I don't even know if you're allowed to have a dot in that sheet name, but just be aware that there are two ways. So if the dot notation does not work with the Excel file dot the sheet name dot cells, you could use the dot workbook dot worksheets and then specify the string of the worksheet. That does work. Now, if we wanted to modify this C1 value here, so we can just specify the value itself, which we see it is country now. So what we could do is we can actually go ahead and just make that equal to country code. And then if we just run that line here, and then we just get the value again, we're going to see that we get country code. Now, the only thing is, if I go ahead and go in the test import, we see that it actually didn't change yet. Now, that's because we haven't actually saved the file. So if ever you make a modification by hand using that Open Excel package, afterwards you will have to do the close Excel package, give the package, and then give it the Excel file. Now there are parameters for no save or save as. No save, of course, will not save the file. And then save as, you could save it as a completely different file, which I would probably do if you're working in a production environment. Potentially, if you don't want to actually destroy the original data. So there are some companies, and there's like a rule of thumb that I learned in my spur of computer science that I took, which is basically in layman terms like thou shall not harm the data. So you always want to keep that original data if possible. So in most scenarios, I would probably recommend to save as. Now, of course, we don't really care about this because we're just really testing. We're not in a production environment. So we're just going to go ahead and close that Excel package. And now if we go ahead and we reopen that Excel file, we can actually see that that cell has actually changed. So that's how you would change a cell, how you could read a cell value specifically. So this could come in handy. I can't think of really specific scenarios where you would probably automate using specific cells unless your company has a very, very specific template where you know that at a specific cell value is what you've got to get. In that case, it would work. But I believe that most of the time, the import Excel would probably be a lot better in the situation here. So the other thing that we can do with the Open Excel package is add pivot tables and pivot charts based on the data that is in an Excel package. So what we could actually do here is what we're going to want to do is first, let's make our data a little bit more usable. So we could do a pivot table on the data that we have now, but right now we have country codes, and country codes might not be really useful for the employees at our company. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to recreate that sheet that we had here that we created in the second video, but we're going to be using the Open Excel package. So let's go ahead and let's just I'm going to leave that stuff there just so you guys can actually still see it. And we're just going to reopen the Excel file here. And then what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to go ahead and use this package instead of a path to import our variables. So we've already seen how to do this, so I'm not going to go too much into details here. So we're going to first import our users, which is just going to be the import Excel. Now in here we have path, which is what we used last time. in this scenario, we're going to use an Excel package, and we are going to specify our Excel file. And then we are going to make sure that we also specify a worksheet name of users. So now if we just copy paste this, we're going to change this to not companies, but it's countries. And then we are going to, I believe the name of that sheet is countries. That should be good. All right, so now let's just go ahead and let's see what this looks like. So as we can see, our user looks great and our countries look great as well. Now I'm just going to change user to users so it's a little bit more proper there. And then we're going to create our variable here called detailed users, and we're going to make that equal to system.collections.arraylist, and we're going to make that an empty array list. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do a for each user in users, and then we're just going to open and close the curly brackets here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the country name of that user. So we're going to do country name, and that's going to equal to countries, and we're going to pipe that to where code is going to be, I believe I used equal last time. And then we're going to do a equal to user dot country code, because we've changed users from just country to country code, but for some reason that still is showing up as country here. So let me just make sure. Country code, yep, so there it is. So we do have country code, so that should be good. And then we're just going to grab the name of that country. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new user here, and we're going to do a new object. Type name is going to be a PS object. And then we're going to go ahead and do the add member, and then the input object is going to be our new user. Member type is going to be a note property. Name is going to be name. And then the value is going to be user.name. And then we're going to do this for all three values because we have an age and we're going to have a country here. So the age is going to be user.age, and then the country, we are going to put in our country name. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a detailed users dot add, and we're going to add the new user. Now this is going to spit out a index of where it gets added. So we're just going to add the open and close square bracket void to remove that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a detailed users, and we're going to do an export Excel, and we're going to do a Excel package. We're going to do Excel file, and then the worksheet name, we're going to call it users with country name, and that should be perfect. So let's just run this entirely here. And then if we open this up, we will see our export worked, and we do have our country names, we have our names, we have our ages, so that is all working correctly. So then what we would want to do now is we want to add that pivot table with the data that's already existing in there. we don't want to add it to this sheet. So we don't want to just do pivot table and add it that way. What we want to do is we just want to recreate it all together. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to have to reopen up that Excel package. And then we're going to use the commandlet of add pivot table. And then we're going to point to our Excel package, which is going to be our Excel file. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do a pivot rows. Our pivot rows is going to be country name. And then, or is that what I called it? No, I only called it country. And then pivot data. So this is going to be really the calculation that goes on. We're going to put country. That's the field that we want to do. And we want to count. So we want to see how many users are in the specified country. And then the source worksheet for this data. So this is, we're telling it to grab that Excel file. We're telling it what pivot table to make, but we need to point it to a specific worksheet. So we're going to point it to our users with country name. And I believe that that is going to be pretty much it, other than naming our pivot table. So pivot table name, we are just going to create it our test user country. And then we are going to go ahead and we are going to activate that. And then what we can do here, so that's going to add the pivot table. And then what we can do is we're just going to go ahead and do a close. Whoops. Close Excel package, Excel file. So now once we do that, we are going to see that we do get our pivot table. Now the pivot table doesn't include a chart by default. So all we have is our pivot table. So we can see that we have 3 of our users are in Canada. 1 of our users is in United States based on this spreadsheet. So this is a very, very like easy, compared to looking at this, going in, counting, we could simply create this pivot table, which is based on this sheet here. So that's kind of why I wanted to use Canada. Why I wanted to create this sheet is because I can actually get the names. So it's a little bit easier to read for that end user that you might be preparing this report for. Now, of course, what you could also do is, let me just delete this sheet here. And we're going to go ahead and just modify the line. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do include pivot chart. And then the chart type, we are going to do a pie chart. All right, so let's just go ahead and let's run these 3 lines once again. Now, as I've already pointed out, in LibreOffice, this still will not look great. It will not look anything like what you want. So what we need to do is we need to open up a web browser. So let me just open up a web browser here. And we are going to go ahead and we are going to go to our OneDrive. And I'm pretty sure I don't have a file with that name, so I should be good to just drag it over. It's taking a little bit more time than I would expect it to. This is running on a virtual machine, so it is a little bit slower. So I'm just going to come back once this actually loads up here. I'm not sure if I'm having some issues, so let me just pause the recording here and we'll just come back once that comes up. All right, so it is back up here. So let's just go ahead and let's copy this file over. And then once we have that file up here, we can go in and open it in Excel Online. And then here we have our test user country. We have our pivot chart, pivot table here. And then we have our pivot chart here, which we can see Canada is in, if I close this, Canada is in blue, United States is in orange. We can see that our majority of our users are in Canada. So that is pretty much a bunch of stuff that you can do with that Open Excel package. Now, there are a bunch of other things that you can do with the Open Excel package, of course, because Excel has a bunch of different functionality. So if you guys want to see anything specific, leave a comment down below and I will try to get to it. I'm not so much an Excel expert, so these are just functions that I have found very useful for creating reports that are a little bit more user-friendly than just creating the standard CSV files. But if you guys have any specific functions that you guys would like to see, place it down in the comments. I will look them up and try to get them working for me. Maybe learn that functionality in Excel as well, so I actually know what it's doing. And I could make a video on that for you guys. So in the next video, we're going to be re-looking at something that we've already done with CSV files, which is just take a bunch of Excel files and calculate the sum of a specific column, and then give you the sum per each file. So we will see that in the next video. And if you guys liked the video, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.